Hello, and welcome to another episode of Social Workers Rise. It is your host, Catherine, here. If you don't know who I am an LCSW based out of Southern California. I am the host of the Social Workers Rise podcast. I do therapy, I have books, I have courses for clinical social workers. So I do it all. If you want to learn more about that, check out the link in the show notes. For today, I have a really cool topic that we're going to be talking about. It is sport social work. Yes, social workers in sports. We are literally everywhere. So if you enjoy sports, if you have played sports, if you know people who enjoy sports, listen up because this may very well be a new career path for you, my friend. And I'm very excited to introduce. We have two guests today. I want to welcome Jessica Joyner. She is an EMDR trained therapist, and Christine Mosher. She's a clinical social worker and therapist, both the co-chairs of the admissions committee with the Alliance of Social Workers in Sports. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Great, thanks you. Thank you for having us.
Yes, of
I'm happy to
course.
be here.
It's been a long time. We've been communicating via email for months. So I'm so excited that we finally all three got together today. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank
Yeah, I'm
you.
glad we
Me
can find
too.
time to meet and talk about this.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to hear first about who you both are and what you do. Christine, you're first.
Okay. My name's Christine Mosher, and I am a licensed independent clinical social worker in Massachusetts. I have my own private practice, and I see clients from age 10 and up. I specialize in athlete mental health, but many of my clients are not athletes, so I see non-athletes as well. And I also have a side business called Athlete Wellness Consultants, where I do consulting work, education, and training on athlete mental health and wellness. And we provide trainings for coaches and athletes and teams to try to help educate people how to better talk to their athletes about mental health and how to create a more positive and affirming sport culture.
I love this because so many times people are saying, what can I do with my social work degree? And Christine, you're doing like a lot. So that's a lot of great ideas for the listeners there. Thank you so much. Jessica.
Yeah, I'm Jessica Joyner, and I am an LCSW and an LAC, so a licensed clinical social worker and a licensed addictions counselor here in the Denver metro area, where I have my own private practice as well. And I work with athletes and non athletes alike, trying to get more into just the athlete space. But a lot of my clients who are not current athletes are a lot of former athletes, even if that means that they were just former high school, college athletes or whatever. But a lot of that still ties in with working with athletes as well. They still have that athlete mentality. So in any case, I like I said, I work with ages from about 18, 16 to 18 on up, and all the way through like retirement age, because as we know, transition in life in general can come with a lot of challenges, and that can also present a little bit differently for those in sport. And so, working with them with transitions in and out of different levels of sport as well as out of sport.
Okay, great.
So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
So before we get started, I want to be very clear. What exactly is sport social work?
Well, I would say sports social work is really, it supports the mental health and well-being of athletes at all levels. I think it combines, clinical care, advocacy, social justice issues, and it just helps to athletes to manage stress, their identity, whether or not they've had injuries, transitions, as I just said, and performance pressure. But the goal is really to help athletes thrive, both in sport and just in life in general.
Okay, great. And what's the difference between, say, a sports social worker and a sports psychologist?
Well, a sports psychologist is primarily focused on helping the athlete with their performance in their sport. So, if they have some type of a mental block that's preventing them from doing well, it has some anxiety about an upcoming game or any kinds of mental health issues that impact their performance in their sport, a sports psychologist would be the person that would be treating that kind of situation. Whereas a sports social worker really is trying to see the athlete as a whole human being. And we look at the athlete as someone who has family, who has community, they're part of systems. So we look at the individual in relationship to their systems and their relationships and recognize that just because they're an athlete doesn't mean they're not a human being who has typical normal human being problems that we all have. And so I think that's like the primary difference between a sports social worker and a sports psychologist.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I'm wondering, because when you said that the sports psychologist helps with anxieties or with blocks, I mean, couldn't the social workers do that too? Because you all are both therapists. I imagine that that's part of your work too.
Yeah, I would say so. I think
Mhm.
that, what we do is maybe we would focus on the whole human being and the mental health piece first, and then we could see how maybe those mental health issues might be impacting performance. And we have the philosophy of that if we're treating the whole human being, then maybe some of those mental blocks and things that have been affecting their performance might subside on their own because we're taking care of other things that are taking their energy and focus away from their sport performance.
Okay. Yep. That makes sense. Because I would imagine it'd be really hard to perform at your best if you're worried about, say, who's picking up your kid from school or like, oh,
Mhm.
do they have reliable transportation? Is there going to be food on the table? So all of these other life stressors that come up for everybody, not just athletes. So,
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
And what kind of settings would you typically find a sports social worker working in?
Jessica does give answers. So, like Jessica and I both work in private practice, so that's one setting. A lot of the individuals that are members of the Alliance of Social Workers in Sports work in colleges, athletic departments. There are coaches as well. Most of us are former athletes as well, so we do understand the athlete mindset. Some are in community organizations, youth sport programs, nonprofit organizations. So they're medical teams. So there really like, is a huge variety of ways that sports social workers can show up in the professional space.
A lot of people are, like she said, in like colleges, and I guess the one thing I would add too is like the U.S. Olympic Committee, the USOPC, hires a lot of sports social workers. They have another requirement now that you have to have in order to be hired from them, but which is the CMPC credential. But a lot of places are really starting to look to sports social workers because they know that we have a lot to offer. We have kind of that broad spectrum that we can cover, and because it's not just about therapy either. A lot of sports social workers are in there doing more of kind of the uh, casework kind of stuff, right? They're helping with the different transitions that people have, and so they call it player development, right? So it's not necessarily therapeutic based, but it's more transition and kind of everyday and life skills based.
Mm-hmm.
So there's lots of different areas for sports social workers, and it doesn't mean that you have to be a therapist to get into it.
Okay, awesome. Great. I love that. I love the versatility of just this particular niche of social work because I always say there's just so much that you can do with a social work degree. The possibilities are endless, but it seems like people feel so pigeonholed into, well, I can work for the county or a nonprofit and like that's it. And they don't even think about
Yeah,
all of these other places.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's so
definitely.
true. And I think that's one of the hard things about not having a specialized program in some of the schools, that really showcase kind of the different areas that you can go into. And so it's great that we're able to kind of bring this to the attention and to the masses so that they do know, because we need more so that, we can have a bigger voice.
Hmm. Yeah, and social workers are typically collaborators by nature. So we also try to raise awareness and bring together different organizations to work together and help support the athlete in different realms. So some of our members specialize in a particular clinical area. For example, we have a member who specializes in eating disorders, and we have another member who specializes in OCD, and other members who specialize in nutrition, and they might offer education and training in sports nutrition and dietitians. And so there's a lot of different specialties within sports social work as well. So if somebody has a particular area of interest or specialization, they can kind of hone in on that niche. And then, we all work together. So if we know someone who specializes in one field that we might not be a specialty in, we can reach out and bring that community together to help better support the athlete and give them more resources.
Great. That's awesome. So important. And you all kind of mentioned a little bit about what kind of areas do you help with, but how do you each help athletes in your setting?
I think, like, just some of those clinical issues that I just mentioned, eating disorders, anxiety, OCD, substance use. These are the issues that most often impact athletes. So these are the kind of issues that really we start seeing on a regular basis. What happens, though, is when you start dealing with the issue at hand, you find that as you get to know your client and you peel back the layers, you find out there's more and more going on besides that one particular issue that they came to see you for. So it's a collaborative effort where you're creating kind of a bond and a bond of trust with your client so that they feel comfortable and safe with you to share their stories. And then once you kind of establish that bond of trust and they start opening up to you more, you're finding out that the particular issue that they came to seek help for, such as maybe an eating disorder, perhaps as you get to know them more and find out more and more about their life, their family, their situation, you learn about some other things that are going on behind the scenes.
Yes, yes, the truth comes out. I've seen that in my work with anxiety. So people will come seeking help with symptom management and improved coping. And really, they're in an abusive relationship and they're, maybe being emotionally abused and thinking, oh, it's my fault. I'm the one that needs therapy. But then it
Mhm.
comes out that there's so many other layers that go deeper.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you
What
just a
can
about you,
dig
different
into
kind
Jessica?
of
the past.
therapy.
Yeah, you
Hmm.
can dig into their past too and figure out, like, I wonder why you feel this way, or I wonder why you have this feeling about yourself or these thoughts about yourself. And you ask questions like, what was it like in your childhood? Where do you think you got that message that you're not good enough? Or where do you think that you got that message that you have to be thin to be valuable? Things like this. And you kind of explore a little bit why an individual might have that mindset where they got those belief systems. And that is helpful to the client to learn more about themselves and why they might feel the way they feel, and understand that it might not be the current situation that's causing the problem. It could be stemming from things that have happened in the past that could be causing these issues.
Yeah, so I think on top of kind of all the issues and things that Christine mentioned, I mean, I also work a lot with perfectionism and identity issues and racial identity, and where do I fit in if I'm not in sport? Like, some, again, going back to those transitions from one level of sport to the next versus transition out of sport, whether that be for natural retirement reasons or for injury, which is often unexpected, and that can be a whole grief and loss process. And so there's a lot tied into that, as well as the grief and loss piece. So a lot of that perfectionism piece, I find, working with a lot of athletes, that there's that strive and that need and that desire to to be perfect, and there's healthy perfectionism, and then there's the unhealthy perfectionism. And oftentimes I have found in my practice that a lot of athletes borderline on that unhealthy perfectionism and really beat themselves up for not being perfect in practice, not being perfect in their field of play, whatever that is. And so I really work a lot with clients on journaling some, but really picking out and shifting their focus from the negative things to what did they do right. Because again, that unhealthy perfectionism is really always focusing on what I did wrong. And I didn't do this right, and I didn't do that, and I should have, and I should, and I could have done this better, right? So a lot of shoulds and coulds. And so really trying to shift their focus to more of what did you do well? What's and oftentimes, and I can't tell you how often this happens with so many of my clients, but they struggle to find the smallest thing that they did well. And so that's why I kind of bring journaling into it. So I'm like, when you can see it on a piece of paper and you write it down. And I said, it can be the smallest thing. It can be like, I made a good pass today. And that's it. And that's okay. Because then that's what we will build on. But it really takes some time to shift that mentality from focusing on what I did wrong all the time to what did I do well. Because when they can start to focus on what they do well, then they do see a shift in their play and in their performance. And it's somewhat cliche, but like our thoughts matter,
Mm-hmm.
right? And our thoughts can lend to how we behave. And when we are thinking positively, it can make such a big difference in our performance and in whatever that is. But I think people again get so focused on what I'm not doing well enough to be perfect
Mm-hmm.
that it really becomes this all consuming thing, and then it can be kind of that downward spiral of I don't do anything right, I'm not good enough,
Mm-hmm.
I'll never be good enough. And
Right.
so shifting that focus over a little bit to being more positive is has been helpful in my practice.
Yeah, I agree with that, Jessica. That's such a good point. And I think a lot of athletes, too, because of that drive for perfectionism and success, lose the joy of the sport itself. You know,
Yeah.
over time, this sport becomes almost like a job for the athlete, especially if the athlete has been kind of influenced to specialize in their sport at a young age and maybe have only participated in one particular sport. And then as they go in through middle school, high school, and college, by the time sometimes people graduate high school or college, they're just so burnt out on this sport, they don't even want to do it anymore. And it becomes so much of their identity. And that can be difficult too. You know, the athlete identity plays a big role in all of this because athletes tend to identify their self-worth as an athlete, and they see themselves as I'm only a contributing or valuable human being if I am doing well at my sport and succeeding in my sport. So if they're not succeeding well in their sport, if they have an injury or if they've retired from their sport, all of a sudden they have an identity crisis because they don't know how to see themselves anymore because they've focused so much on themselves as being an athlete.
Yeah.
So some of the things I do with my clients is to try to start them young on identifying things other than their sport that they can enjoy and excel at, so that when they grow up and they become adults and they're no longer able to participate in their sport due to injury or aging out or retirement, that they will have already developed other skills and talents and gifts that they realize that they can be part of their identity, that they feel good about and gain some self-esteem from. And they're not just an athlete. They are not just a sport robot. They're a whole human being with many gifts and talents that can define who they are.
Yeah.
So powerful. And I imagine it just gives so much hope because while yes, one identity of being an athlete is a really big part of your life, but there's also so many other parts of your life. You're a child, you're a friend, you're a neighbor, maybe you have other hobbies. And so it really helps to paint the picture of there's so much more to life and this isn't just the end.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I think that's really
Yeah.
important. And I think it's tough for kids who get caught up in this cycle of I'm going to say the club sports system sometimes can be an issue because we're teaching kids and parents that this is the path to a successful life, specializing in a sport at an early age and then spending so much time and money on that sport that it takes away from just regular family time and regular friend time that you might have on a weekend. Now, instead, you're traveling to tournaments in other states, and it takes a lot of time and energy and effort and money on everybody's part. And in some of these cases, some kids are not going to go on to become college or professional athletes. Some kids are, and some kids thrive on this and they love that and they want to do that. And that's fine for those kids. But the other kids that might not be the best path for them.
Right. Yes. I see this a lot in my area. So I'm blessed to live in a pretty affluent area. I'm not extremely affluent, but I see a lot of people who put their kids in different sports clubs, as you said, where they're playing all year. And some people feel like it's an investment. It's like, okay, if I pay for this club sport, then they're going to go on to college. They're going to get full rides and scholarships, and then they're going to be professional and they're going to make all this money. And I'm thinking, like, yeah, but what about in the meantime, or if they get injured? It just seems like a lot of pressure. And like was what was mentioned earlier is, what if they get burnt out on it because it's just so
Right.
much work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the pressure, I mean, you talk about the pressure being, a lot of that's the external pressure, right? From parents. I have to perform. I have to do this because my parents want me to do it. But then there's the internal pressure of like, I have to be perfect at it and I have to do this and I don't want to disappoint anybody. So
Right.
I have to keep going. I have to keep playing, even though I don't really enjoy it anymore. I can't tell my parents that because they won't, because they have invested all this money and they have done X, Y, and Z for me. And so I can't tell them that I don't want to play anymore. There's so many different layers to kind of all of this, right? And this is why, again, like sports social work is so needed, because there's so many different little areas to kind of get into as well. I mean, like there's the whole name and likeness thing that's going on in college, and is creating like a whole separate set of like pressures and issues that I think were unforeseen, right? Because it's complicated, and the way that it works is more like a business now, and it's yeah. So there's lots of layers to that, and lots of individuals and lots of working parts that go into that. And so helping people navigate that too, right? That's why like education for parents and for coaches and for athletes themselves, as well as anybody kind of involved in the athletic system, is so important, to kind of know like, how do we navigate all of these different things in a healthy way to help the athlete, but also to help the system of the athletic department,
Right.
of the sport, all of it. And so there's lots of need out there, and I think sometimes like they don't even know what they need. Sometimes like those systems don't even really know what they need yet. But as social workers, I think we can kind of see it from a lot of different perspectives. We see it from the athlete perspective, especially when we're doing one-on-one work with athletes. But it brings other things to light too when you're working with athletes, right? They bring other things up that are like, oh yeah, I wouldn't even have thought of that until like you mentioned, and like, oh, all these people are having issues with this one coach. How do we deal with that? Right? People are afraid to then say something to that coach or say, something to anybody, right? And so it's helping the whole system as well as the individuals within that system.
Yeah,
For
that
sure.
is so true.
Yes.
I think a lot of times too, coaches need help too. I think back when I first started playing sports, I started when I was maybe in seventh grade, and I played basketball and soccer and tennis and street hockey, backyard football, whatever. I was playing all different kinds of sports, which is great. And then I went on to play soccer in college, which was also great. But during that time in the 80s, there really wasn't any conversation about athlete mental health. Now, I think it's great because I feel like there's more conversation about athlete mental health. And I think some of the more famous athletes that have spoken out about their own mental health struggles in the media, like Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka and Serena Williams and other Michael Phelps. These athletes have helped bring to light that it's okay to talk about your mental health and that it's okay to seek help when needed, which has really been helpful for the younger generation coming up into sports, because now they're seeking services. Now they're saying, okay, yeah, I am struggling and I want help. And so now it's up to us to create that resource for them and to have the system, like Jessica mentioned, be supportive of that and fund that. A lot of it has to do with finances too. So, sometimes when I go to college and I'm trying to pitch, like, hey, wouldn't it be great if we had a social worker on staff here? We can help you with these issues. They say, yeah, it's a great idea. We'd love that, but we don't have any money in the budget for it. So we need to create money in the budget for it. And that's where we need to go talk to the people who are in those decision-making places, like athletic directors or heads of club teams or heads of Olympic teams or professional teams, and say, like, this is important and we need to fund this, because athletes are now realizing it's okay to talk about it and it's okay to seek help. So we need to provide those resources for those athletes.
For sure. Yes. Yes. So powerful. And I love the connection that you made between the clinical work and the advocacy and the macro work, because a lot of times social workers just can't see that connection. So that's a perfect example of how you have to have both. I mean, if you want to get paid, you got to have both, right?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, because you mentioned that there's a big need for more social workers in sports. If I'm just graduating from college, what do I do? Where do I get started? Are there certifications? Are there trainings? Do I join the alliance? Like, how do I even get started in sports social work? What would be some tips that each of you have for that? And Jessica, we'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. Um, so it is difficult to kind of get in. I'll just say that. But I think if you get in like with a college or a high school or somewhere in an athletic department, I think it makes it a little bit easier when you're part of an organization, right? Being in private practice makes it a little bit more difficult. I think Christine can attest to that as well. When you're in private practice and you're kind of on the outskirts of it, and you're trying to be a resource for people, it can just be a little bit more difficult to break in. It becomes more about like networking and who you know, and constantly trying to kind of get a foot in the door, whatever door that is, into some of these organizations and things like that. But along the way, you're creating relationships and you're creating, again, a network of folks, of professionals. And so it's always, I mean, that's kind of an upside to that. But I do think if you're really wanting to jump into it, I think getting into an athletic department in some form, getting into a college, a high school, again, we could get into some different, like, do I want to be a school social worker? And, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. I mean, but if you're in those spaces, those are good ways to kind of connect with athletic directors and with, especially in high schools, and coaches and things like that, and do your own networking within amongst that population. Um, Other than that, I think again, kind of on the more macro level, it's like, do you want to teach about it? Do you want to, I think joining the alliance is a great idea, especially again, if this is for social workers. So we want more people to come and join our, the Alliance of Social Workers in Sports. Join the clinicians committee. Come see what Christine and I do and kind of offer as far as for our membership. And we have different things that we do on a monthly basis, have different guest speakers, that kind of thing. But I think again, that kind of is as a start for those who are getting into it. Christine, what do you think?
Yeah, those are great examples of ways people can consider getting into the field and jobs that people can do at an entry level. The Alliance of Social Workers in Sports also offers a certificate program for sports social workers to specialize in this field. So that has been going on for a few years. So that is a great program that's specific education targeted towards sports social work. And we have many researchers and academics in the Alliance who are college professors who have started the Alliance and have had articles published in social work journals There's actually now an official sports social work journal that research in all different areas of sports social work it can get published. So there's a broad range of information out there now, which is really fantastic. So I would say, like Jessica said, join the Alliance of Social Workers in Sports. Attend our annual symposium. We have an annual symposium each year where we all get together and we present on different topics related to sports social work. It's a great way to expand your education and get to know other people in the field. I know that when I first joined and I went to my first symposium, I was so excited because I was finally meeting people who thought like me, spoke like me, and understood the language I was speaking. And I felt like I finally have found my people. These people understand what I'm talking about and they get me. People who are also thinking like you, working in the same field as you, can be really helpful. You get to network and see what other people are doing around the country. And we even have a reach outside in different countries now too. So it's becoming an international field. One of the things I've also been doing is to educate my local chapter of the NASW, the National Association of Social Workers. So each state has its own chapter, and I've been trying to do presentations to my own chapter to educate them about sports social work. So then we're teaching other social workers who weren't aware of this field about this field. And that's another way of helping to broaden our reach and gain more recognition for this field.
Awesome. I love it. So many great actionable tips. Do you have any idea of when the next conference is going to be?
Yeah, it's at the
Yes.
end of September. I think it's
Okay.
is it September 30th to October 1st? It's in New
It
Orleans.
is, yes.
Okay, great. So we still have time to register.
Yeah, you can go
You
on the
do.
Alliance of Social Workers in Sports website, which is www.aswis.org, and get information about the Alliance and about the certificate program and the symposium.
Great. And that website is in your show notes. So if you open up your podcast app, go to the show notes, it'll be there in the link. While you're there, make sure that you subscribe to the Social Workers Rise podcast so you can get notified of any upcoming episodes. Thank you so much, Jessica and Christine, for being here today. If people have further questions, where can they go? Can they reach out to you? How do they get in touch with you guys?
Sure. Yeah. You can reach me at my my website, or my email is jessica.joiner, Joiner, at journeyinspiredcounseling.com. Really one long word. But I'm assuming you'll put those in the show notes as well. So yeah, feel free to email me, and then we can connect in whatever way, and we can get in touch.
Yeah, and Jessica and I and a lot of other clinicians are listed on the clinician registry that is also located on the Alliance of Social Workers in Sports website. And I also do have my own website for my own private practice, and it's just my name, Christine A. Mosier, LICSW. I'm also listed on Psychology Today, and I'm in Buzzards Bay, Massachusetts, so you can look me up that way. And then my website for the athlete wellness consultants is, I also have a website for that. So that's just www.athletewellnessconsultants.com.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. It was a great conversation. We will see you next time.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much for
Catherine.
having
Thanks,
us.
Jessica.